We are going to work on today specifically a little bit of strengthening. So we don't usually think in yin as working on strengthening, but I'm currently doing a teacher training right now, and he talks a lot about that. And the idea is, and you guys can kind of relate this, that in our bodies, we do have places that are tight or muscles that are considered short. But if you think about it, what all the other thing we have is we have muscles that are locked into constantly being long. So say if you have a real rounded posture, your back muscles here are actually probably locked in more of a long position. So stretching them is not going to help that. What we actually need to do is strengthen them. So that head down position, if we work on these muscles back here to strengthen them, we can actually pull it up. Whereas just constantly thinking about stretching, which is sometimes the way we think about yin, isn't actually going to help that. Using just a little bit of engagement and strength can actually help to counter that. So it's being able to balance the body out. So it's just kind of changing the way of thinking about what yin is. So we're not just trying to always stretch and lengthen things. Sometimes we're actually trying to engage things because we all know that once we have a muscle, the best position for it to be in is it to be lengthened and strong. Lengthened and weak, think about a rubber band. If I'm constantly pulling it out, eventually that rubber band's going to get weak and break. Whereas if it's long and strong, that's a much better situation to be in. So it's just something to kind of think of your mindset as we're going through yin today. If you notice that I'm calling for you to engage things a little bit more, that's why. Okay, so we are going to start in a seated position, and we're going to start in a 90-90 position. So take your left shin out in front of you and have it parallel to the short edge of the mat, and line up so that your hip and your knee are even, and then your knee and your ankle are even. And once you've done that, then we'll do the same thing with the back leg. And so I have to open mine out a little bit more. So again, the hip and the knee are even, the knee and the ankle are even. And then place your hands down on either side of you, kind of for a little bit of balance, and just feel this. So right here, just even doing this is a pretty nice stretch. So we have external rotation of this front leg. We actually have internal rotation of the back leg. So this is called 90-90. It's also sometimes called deer legs. And this is a great prep for what we call pigeon in vinyasa or swan in yin, which we are probably going to do later. So this will be a nice warm up for it. Okay, from here, if you can, inhale, circle the arms up over the top of the head. And then bring your left hand down, reach your right fingertips across. You can bend this elbow and take a nice side stretch. Beautiful. Come up through center, and then we'll take it to the other side. Bring your right hand down, reach your left fingertips. Beautiful. Gently come back up through center. We're going to take a twist. Take your left hand behind your body, right hand to the left knee, and gently twist. Releasing the twist, come back through center. Place your fingertips again on the earth. Now, some of us will feel this and some of us won't. You're going to try to take this right hip and just gently see if you can press it down towards the earth. Also, the right knee. So, see if you can put a little tension in that right knee and right hip. Now, if it right away causes cramping in the back of your hip here, you know that that's not for you, so don't do it. What you should feel is a stretch on the inside of the thigh a little bit deeper. Does anybody feel that? Okay. Kind of depends on how your body is. You can even move yourself a little bit towards that side if that helps you. That inside groin area is not an area we usually stretch, so this is a nice one to do that. Beautiful. And you can go ahead and release that. Bring your hands behind you, lean back. Let's plant our feet about mat's width distance and let our knees tent in for a moment. And we'll take a couple windshield wipes to the left and right. So this one's probably my favorite transition to take in vinyasa or yin classes. This really helps to loosen the lower back, especially if it's tight. You could take it in a lot of different orientations. All right, setting up for the second side. So this time the right shin is in front. Bring that left foot behind you, and the feet can be flexed here, but they don't have to be. So take a moment to set up. So again, the hip and the knee set up, the knee and the ankle, and then the back leg, the hip and the knee and the ankle, getting in that 90-90. And you might feel one side is quite different than the other. So just take a moment here to kind of settle in. We've got that asymmetrical stretch because we've got external rotation on the front leg and internal rotation on the back. Again, internal rotation, again, not something we tend to do. So you can a lot of times feel this in your outer hip. As you're ready, if you can, inhale, reach your arms up. We'll take it over to the side. So right hand down, reach your left fingertips. Just a little side stretch. Inhale, come up through center. Let's take it to the other side. Left hand down, reach your right fingertips. Inhale, reach up. We'll take that twist. Right hand behind you, left hand to the right knee. Always feel free to adjust yourself a little bit if you need. You want to be comfortable here. You can feel an intensity and stretch, but again, we never want to feel sharp or shooting pain. Go ahead and release, come back to center, plant the fingertips down, and then we'll work on that engagement. So again, we're pressing our left hip down towards the mat and the inside of our left knee. Flexing the toes if you'd like. We flex the toes sometimes because that helps the stability in the knee, or sometimes just makes us think where our knee is more stable. It actually does help to stabilize the knee, but you don't have to do that. But if it helps you in your practice, then do. Beautiful yogis. Let's go ahead and release that engagement. Bring your hands behind you, and again, bring your feet out in front. Let's take a couple of those windshield wipes. So just that small movement can be quite a lot. All right, go ahead and stop in the center. Kick your feet behind you, and we're going to find a child's pose. So we have options here, whether or not you want to support your child's pose. In yin, we spend a little bit of time in our postures, so we're going to be here for a little while. So knowing that, you might want to take the bolster with you. Knees are as wide apart as you'd like. So there's an option where you can have a really wide kneed child's pose with the toes together, or the knees can be a little closer if you prefer. So options here would be bringing the bolster in between the legs to have more of a supported child's pose. We will eventually have a shoulder stretch too, but you can start with the bolster. Or if you'd like it to be a little bit more intense, you could bring the blocks with you and have your hands on blocks. This gives you a little bit more space in the shoulders. You can also use the block to support the head if the neck all the way down doesn't feel good. So work into what works in your body. And know that you can always change that partway through if you'd like. We're going to start to allow our hips to open. So we've got external rotation of both hips here. We have extension of the spine, just a little bit of back bend in our child's pose. Head is a little bit below our heart, so we're getting all of the benefits of an inversion. So in our yin practice, we do focus mainly on our hips because that's the part of our body in our modern lives that doesn't get a whole lot of motion or a lot of different types of motions. In our daily lives, we tend to do a lot of the same repetitive motions. So sitting in chairs, sitting in cars, sitting at desks, but we don't do a lot to counter that. We use this opportunity in our yin practice to start to counter those moves so that we can balance the body out. And your hip tissue is considered anything from your knees all the way up to your rib cage because everything there is connected. We'll do a little bit of shoulder stretching today, but we don't do as much of that in the yin practice because our shoulders get quite a bit of mobility throughout the day and a lot of different mobility. They're also a little bit more of a delicate joint, so we don't tend to hold things in the shoulders as long. Yogis, let's take 3 more breaths in this variation of child's pose. Perhaps you walk your fingertips even a little bit farther forward, feeling the side bodies stretch out just a little bit more. Beautiful. And from here, we'll take that shoulder stretch. We're going to take thread the needle. So press into your hands just enough to lift up. You won't need the blocks here. You can bring the right arm underneath the left. You're going to thread it through and then come down on your right temple and right shoulder. So this stretches out kind of underneath the shoulder blade on the right side. The left arm could reach forward, or you could also reach around and take a half bind. So to take that half bind, you can always place your palm down on your sacrum and then flip the palm so the back of your hand is down. And then bring your elbow in close to your body. So your left elbow would be in close for that half bind. We'll take a couple breaths here. Again, if you're not feeling the intensity in that stretch, if you think of pressing yourself down a bit, you might feel it a little bit more in the outside of that right shoulder. If you've taken that half bind, bring that left arm back out in front of you or by the face. Lift yourself up. Stretch your arms out long for a moment. And then we'll find that thread the needle on the left side. So lift yourself up enough and then slide that left arm under. Again, the left temple comes down, left shoulder. Right arm can reach forward, or you can find that half bind. And that stretch underneath the shoulder blade. Maybe noticing differences between your left and right side. Knowing that we are not built symmetrically, so it's always okay to take different variations of postures or shapes on each side. Yin is a lot about feeling into your own body. I can give you a little bit of instruction, but you are the captain of your own ship. So notice the feedback that your body is giving to you and react accordingly. Again, you can press a little bit into the earth with the outside of that left shoulder if you're not feeling it. See See if that helps you feel it a little bit more intensely. Undoing the bind, coming back to center for just a breath to reset. Beautiful. And then gently rise up. Our hips have had quite a bit of compression now. So bring the hands underneath the shoulders for a moment. We'll take 1 or 2 rounds here of cow and cat just to stretch it out. As you inhale, drop the belly, look up, tailbone up. Exhale, chin to chest, press the earth away. Beautiful. Take that one more time. Take it slowly. Take your time. Just feel into each vertebra. And exhale, chin to chest. Beautiful. Coming back to our neutral spine, walk your hands a little forward. Bring the elbows down and then let the knees come back away from you. So we're going to stretch out the front of the hips and the front side of the body for a moment here. So we're in Sphinx pose. So this is a nice heart opener and back bend. Press into your forearms and your hands here. Make sure your elbows are under your shoulders. And if you feel any pinching in the lower back, walk the elbows a little bit away. And we're not going to be here as long. We're not holding this as a true yin posture today. We're going to use this to get into our quads to stretch. So from here, just for a moment, really press down into the earth and see if you can bring your chest a little forward. So imagine you're pressing into your hands and pulling them back towards you. And then the chest comes through. You're widening the collarbones. Drop the shoulders away from the ears. A little bit of a different stretch here. Let the head gently drop back, and it doesn't have to be far. We're just stretching out the front of the neck. Beautiful. And then let the chin come back parallel to the floor. We're going to bring the right hand across. So it's kind of like going to be like a kickstand for you a little bit. And you can bring yourself down. So we're going to kick the left heel in towards the glutes. Now, no, if you can't reach around with the hand, that's okay. Just kicking the heel in towards the glute will start to stretch out the front of the quad. But if you can, reach around with your left hand and hold the ankle. So you get to take this to the intensity you want. So you're hugging your heel in towards your glute, and our target area is the front of our quad, or the front of our legs or our quads. If you would like to take a little bit of shoulder into this, you can also point your elbow towards the sky and press the top of your hand to the top of your foot. So that'll open a little bit of this pec here. This is kind of a half bow pose we have going on here. Beautiful, yogis. Let's go ahead and release that. So we'll bring the left forearm across this time and kick the right heel in towards the glute. As you're ready. And again, know that you can just stay here with the arms crossed and hug the heel in towards the glute. I'll actually give you a little bit of hamstring work. Otherwise, the hand could reach around and hold anywhere on the foot. Where your left arm is up to you. You can have it farther out in front of you. You could even bring your chin down if you want more of just the quad instead of the little bit of heart opening. That's absolutely fine. Depends on the target area. You lift up a little bit more. You're getting a little bit more of a chest opening as well. And again, if it's in your practice, you could take the palm of your hand and press it into the top of your foot. Turn your elbow towards the sky. So the thumb is away from your body. So this is kind of just a different orientation of a runner's stretch, but a lot of us have tight quads. So we're addressing that here in a position that we can hold for a little bit longer. Beautiful, yogis. Go ahead and release that. Stack the palms and bring the forehead down onto the stacked palms for a moment. So this is crocodile pose. Know that you can always turn your head to the side if it bothers you to have your forehead down straight. Beautiful yogis. From here, we're going to take this opportunity to take another shoulder stretch. So lift yourself up a little bit. You can come into like a partial sphinx just so you can watch this. So I have two different variations of this posture. A lot of teachers cue this with the arms straight out from the side. And what we're going to do is roll open. But if you've ever had a rotator cuff injury, or if you have any kind of trickiness in the shoulder, I want you to actually bend your elbow and find more of like a cactus or a diamond shape here. You won't go as far, but a lot of times, and I'll show you where you're going here. So the arm straight out can make the front of the shoulder, the rotator cuff, very vulnerable. Now, some people love it, and that's why I'll say you can do it like this. It's not a mandate to not do it like this, but I tend to, because I have tricky shoulders, do this posture like this. And I can't come as far, and I still get a nice stretch, but I bend the elbow. So we're going to do the right side first, and you can kind of feel it out. So let your right arm come away from you, and then turn the opposite direction. Left hand underneath the left shoulder, and then you can kind of feel where you need to be and begin to turn yourself up onto your right side. So the legs here can be just stacked, or you can bend into the knee and kind of place the left toes down. The left hand is pushing into the earth a little bit here to help you with balance. This opens the front of the pack and the chest. We won't hold this one long. I've heard this called broken wing. Not the most pleasant name, so there's that. Beautiful yogis. Let's go ahead and release that. Come back onto your belly. And then we'll take it to the other side. So again, feedback from your body. If having the arm straight out does not work for you, cactus the arm or find the diamond shape. Look the opposite direction. You can always bend the right knee and kind of bring the heel in towards the body as you turn. That'll help to bring the toes down. Or you can just stack the legs. Doesn't really matter. Use the right hand to press yourself up onto your left side a little bit more. The target area of this one is the front of the chest, so the pack, kind of the inside of the armpit. Again, not an area we tend to stretch. This one will help you if you have trouble with binding behind your back. This one helps to open everything up. Beautiful yogis. Go ahead and roll back onto your belly. Take a couple breaths in crocodile pose. Restack your palms. Maybe the opposite one is on top. If you'd like to take some of those windshield wipes to release the lower back, bend into the knees and just let the heels kind of wave left and right. There can be vast differences between our left and right side, and yin yoga really asks us to start to connect into our body. Beautiful. Slowly transitioning yourself back to a tabletop. Don't feel like you need to rush. Take your time. And eventually, again, we'll find our hands underneath our shoulders and our knees underneath our hips in just a neutral tabletop. Take a moment here just to kind of shift the hips left and right. Beautiful. And then gently coming back to center, we're going to get into our outer hips and eventually we're going to sit, but we're going to take a little different entrance into this posture today. We're going to work towards shoelace. So as you inhale, lift your right leg up, reach it behind you, and you can flex the toes so that they're down towards the earth. And now take the bend or the arch out of your lower back. So just hug your navel into your spine a little bit and feel how that kind of lights up the back of your leg. Beautiful. From here, we're just going to take a stretch. So take that right leg across your body to the left side and let the toes land down. So you can look back at the toes. You can take some circles here if that feels good. We're taking a little stretch for the outer hip. Beautiful. Now we already have our legs crossed. So from here, just bend into your right knee and bring it behind the left. So you can shift yourself on your mat a little bit. see if you can fit the right knee kind of behind the left for a moment. You can widen the feet and just feel what this feels like. So this is shoelace. We're just in a different orientation right now. So again, you can shift a little left and right before we get into it. You might want to bring your blocks or your bolster along with you. So we're going to start to bring our hands back and eventually sit down in between the feet, but you might need to bring your bolster with you and have your sits bones on the bolster. So you can bring it back to sit down. You can adjust yourself a little bit here. You don't need to have the bolster if you don't want it. You could also have a block in between the knees, or a block underneath the knees can help as well. So we're doing our best to stack the knees on top of one another. The feet, it doesn't really matter how close they are in. Yours might be a little farther away, that's fine. So even though it seems like it's not, this is actually external rotation of the hips. So our hips are actually opening and externally rotating, but oftentimes where we feel this one, shoelace, is in the outsides of the hips. So you can stay lifted here because this is a lot for most people. If you're not feeling it, begin to crawl the hands forward and find a forward fold. Now you can take your block with you. I like to make myself a little block stand here so I can support my neck. You can always lower it as you start to open a little bit more. It's okay if the spine rounds here, that's absolutely fine. So this is stretching, especially the external rotators in the sides of the hips. You could get in a little bit to the IT band, piriformis. There's a little bit of controversy with those things if they actually stretch here, but you definitely feel them in this shape. So in our yin class, we're not thinking as much about muscles. We're thinking more about connective tissue, ligaments, tendons, and fascia. Modern research has found that our fascia, especially, which is that encasing that encases our entire body, can carry quite a bit of scar tissue. So we can have small micro injuries in that fascia. And that scar tissue, as an injury, if you think about it, as an injury heals, it makes that area stronger, which is good in some ways, but it also shortens it and it can cause restrictions. So in our yin, we're kind of looking for those restrictions and seeing if we can work them out a little bit. Yogis, you have 5 more breaths in shoelace pose. Can you soften just a little bit more? Perhaps finding the edge, taking it to the point where you can feel it, not quite sharp or shooting pain. We don't want that, but definitely feeling a little bit of intensity, perhaps. Once you reach the end of your 5th breath, begin to walk your hands back towards your body, rising up if you've taken the folds. Bring the hands behind you and uncross the legs. Lengthen them out long for a moment. Bounce them out. Take a little self-massage here. So shoelace sounds so innocent, but that posture can be quite a lot. And I find people either love it or hate it. It's kind of, there's no in between there. All right, as you're ready, we're going to come back into our tabletop position. So I like that stretch to begin this one. So find your tabletop. And then as you're ready, we can reach that left leg back this time. And again, flex the toes so that they're coming down towards the earth. And then notice for a moment if you've kind of brought yourself into cow pose. A lot of us do. So we've got that arch in the back right now. See if just for a moment you can hug the navel into the spine and hug the bottom of the ribs towards the top of the hip bones. And just take that arch out of the back. What that'll often do is light up the back of your hamstring. You're like, oh, now I'm working my hamstring. So we're using just a little bit of engagement to start. And now we'll take that left leg across the body and let it land down. So let the toes land. You can look back. You can press the heel back if that feels good, or circle the ankle. Taking a little pre-outer hip stretch before we get into the big one. Beautiful, yogis. And as you're ready, we've already got the knee where it needs to be, or the leg. So bend into the knee and then just kind of fit the left knee behind the right. And you can adjust yourself so you're more in the center of the mat. And as you're ready, spread the feet apart. And you can just feel this for a moment and kind of shake the hips left and right. And we're just preparing ourselves and working into this a little bit more slowly. And as you're ready, begin to walk those hands back. Again, if you need the bolster, just slide it underneath the sacrum before you sit. And you can spread the feet apart a little bit here, kind of adjust yourself as you need. And again, it might be different on this side. Options are having the block perhaps underneath the knees. I used to like this one a lot because it helps me to fold. If you weren't able to find a fold, bringing the block underneath the knee will bring that closer, so maybe you can fold then, or block in between the knees as well. Heels can be a little farther away from the body or a little closer. It's up to you. And again, you might just stay here lifted. You could always take the blocks to the hands for a little bit of support if you need. Or you begin to walk the hands forward and find the fold. Block underneath the forehead, always nice because we're here for time. In classes, we take more time in our postures. The reason for that is these tissues that we're looking to lengthen are denser tissues. They have a lot less elasticity. So they're much stronger and they take time in order to release. Our body also has this cool thing called proprioception, where the nerves are actually kind of holding things, especially around the joints. So it keeps our joints safe. So we're glad our body has that, but it's also sometimes hard to talk your body into letting that go. So it takes time. When your body feels safe and feels like you're going to support it, it will start to release those little locks that it has so that it can start to open up those tissues. Using your breath to help you, working with your body as a partner, not ever trying to force yourself into things. There's a difference between engagement and there's a difference between engagement and force, or strife as we call it sometimes. So while you're relaxing in shoelace pose on the second side, I have a reading for you. This is from Journey to the Heart by Melody Beattie. This chapter is called Discover the Power of Vulnerability. A new kind of power will emerge from vulnerability. The more honest we are with ourselves about how we feel and what we really think, the more power we will have. We may have once thought that being powerful meant not giving in to what we felt, what we thought, or who we really were. But that attitude didn't garner power for us. It caused life, the universe, us to continue creating situations that would help open our hearts, help us to feel, help us learn the lesson of vulnerability. The sooner we become honest with ourselves, the sooner we can be honest with others. The sooner we become honest with ourselves, the more quickly we'll grow and move on to a new place. Become vulnerable, at least with yourself. Be honest about what you think and how you feel. Write it, speak it, feel it, release it. Then you will know where to go, when to go. What you are to do next will emerge naturally and quietly and clearly. Try being absolutely honest. Reveal your most private feelings to yourself. It's a new kind of power, a different kind of power. It is a spiritual power, the power of opening the heart. Yogis, take one more nice deep breath in through the nose in shoelace pose. Maybe open the mouth, exhale, and release. Beautiful. Starting to walk yourself back up if you've taken that fold. Bring the hands behind you, lean back, and again, uncross the legs, lengthen them out, and bounce them out for a moment. A little bit of self-massage if that feels good. All right, so moving on. This next one is pretty short, and it can be inaccessible for some people. So this one is half hero's pose. So I'm going to set up here how you can set up. So we're going to do it one side at a time. So this is a really deep one for the front of the quad. So one foot is going to be tucked behind you, one leg out. So sitting on a block can sometimes be necessary. If you do not need to set on a block or sit on a block, I'm going to give you the option to recline in this one. And in order to do that, you'll want the bolster behind you, and you can use a block as a pillow. If you have a block underneath you, you're not going to recline. You're just going to lean back and have one leg out. So we can start with our left leg tucked back, just like I have. So you might need two blocks. And if you're sitting up on two blocks, that's absolutely fine. We're still getting the stretch because this is the real target area. If you don't need a block, keep this foot planted to start. Come down on your elbows and then start to lower yourself down. And then, of course, you have that option to lengthen the right leg out. If you're feeling this in the knee, that is not the target area. We don't want to feel it in the knee. So prop yourself up on blocks. Beautiful. And you can still find a little bit of back bend here on a block just by walking your hands back and opening the chest a little bit or just staying upright. And again, working on those quads. The foot can be a little bit away from the body, the left foot if that feels better for you, or the foot could even be slightly turned out. It's just going to depend on your knee. But again, I don't want you to feel any sensations in your knee. Beautiful. So if you take the 26 and 2 series or the Bikram series, we do this pose with both legs, which can be quite intense. But notice that doing it one side at a time can make it a little bit more accessible. So eventually, maybe you can work into doing both legs at once. The good news is the quad muscles do tend to respond a little quicker than other muscles in the body, such as the hamstrings. So they open sooner. We did that stretch at the beginning for the quads as well. Anytime you're hugging your heel in towards your glute, you're getting a nice quad stretch. You can take that in a lot of different orientations. Beautiful, yogis. Go ahead and press your elbows down if you recline and start to bring yourself back up. As I said, we don't spend a lot of time in this one. And let your left leg go out long for a moment. Again, shake out the legs if you would like. You could take a reverse tabletop, plant the feet and lift your hips up for a moment if you'd like. We've been doing a lot of things seated. And as you're ready, we'll work into that second side. So again, maybe notice, see if your body gives you feedback that this side is not the same. So plant the left sole of the foot, lean over, and then kick that right foot behind you. So if you can, the shoelace part of your foot is down and the knee is pointing forward, but you can kind of change that a little bit if you need to, depending on your hips. And maybe you stay lifted here, maybe you're sitting on a block, or you can recline. Once you recline, then see if you can straighten that left leg out and that still feels okay. So we also are getting into the psoas, the front of the hip or the hip flexor. Just breathe here, feeling where you are. Consider, I knew someone that had to sit on 4 blocks. So you do what you have to do. Yes, still getting benefits. So it is hard sometimes to be patient with our bodies. I know I very often get very angry at my body when it doesn't cooperate. We've spent most of our lives kind of giving our body directions, saying, do this, do that. We don't ever take the time to say, hey, what do you need to do? And maybe if we did that, we'd have a lot less injury, first of all, and we could get to the same destination, but perhaps in a safer way without injury along the way. Just take the time to feel the sensations in the body. After all, that is the true yoga. These asanas that we do are kind of secondary. It's more about turning inward, feeling your feelings, feeling the sensations in your body, physically, mentally, perhaps even spiritually. All of that plays into yoga. It's a lifestyle, not just about taking these shapes with our body. Beautiful yogis. One last nice deep breath in half hero, recline style perhaps. Maybe open the mouth, exhale and release. Use the elbows to help work yourself back up. And then release that right leg out in front of you. And again, a little bounce of the knees, a little self massage if you'd like, or that reverse tabletop. We call this hammock in yin. So lifting the tailbone off for a moment. We will not be doing a seated posture next. And eventually we're going to meet back in a tabletop position. So for this next one, we're going to work into swan. So swan in vinyasa is called pigeon. We've got a couple different ways we can take this one. I'm going to show you my favorite one that you can work with a bolster with. So we really do want to support ourselves in our swan. So this bolster can be kind of halfway across your mat, and you might even start with it and then lose it if you don't need it. So we're going to step the right foot forward. So if you need to move the bolster to do that, and then bring the bolster underneath. So we've got the right leg stepped forward. And now we're going to start to toe heel that right foot across the mat. So we're going to take our time here to set this one up. And we're very slowly going to start to lay that shin down parallel. Now flex the right toes, feel that. And then if you need to, tuck the left toes and move the left knee back a little bit. And then bring yourself down onto the bolster. Now we're going to stay lifted for a moment and see if you can keep your back toes tucked. And you can make this a little bit more diagonal if that feels better for you. We're going to stay lifted for a moment here just to feel into this. Now, where I do not want you to feel this is in the knee. If you feel it in the knee, it means you've got restrictions in the hip. If you have restrictions in the hip, I want you to bring your leg back farther into you, and that is perfect because you're more in a deer pose. Yes, the back leg, if you're really feeling this, the back leg can bend a little, and you can be almost in that deer or 90-90 because that is kind of the entrance for where swan is, and you can always start to work your way back. Okay, so now that we've engaged this a little bit, I want you to press your right hip down and then bring it back. Imagine you could bring your right hip back and see if you feel that a little bit more. Beautiful. Now you can flip the left toes over if you want, and if it's in your practice, come down on your elbows. You can even use blocks here underneath the elbows or forehead. You can come all the way down. But again, be careful not to feel it in the knee. If you're feeling it in the knee, back out. You can also take this posture seated or on your back. So this one is a lot. Beautiful technique, and you can always stay lifted in it as well. We have a lot of external rotation in that right hip. We also have quite a bit of extension in the left hip. So you might feel this a little bit more in the front of the left hip than you do in that external rotation of the right. This posture is notorious for feeling very different with the left and right side. This one also can bring up intense feelings. So whether that be anger, frustration, perhaps even joy. There can sometimes be good feelings that come out of postures. Sometimes weird things come up in yin. Know that that's normal. Continuing to breathe here, maybe even slowing the breath down. A lot of times in these intense postures, we tend to hold our breath and kind of clench the jaw. You start to take a full body scan. Just notice if you have areas of tension. Can you release them? Starting to softly work into the edge of where you feel most intense lengthening happening without that feeling of pain. Nice deep breath in through the nose. Open the mouth, exhale, and release. Begin to walk the hands back underneath the shoulders. We're going to slowly rise up. You can just lean to the side if you'd like to get out of this one, or you can bring the left knee in a little bit closer, remove the bolster, and kick the right leg back. And stretch it out a little bit. If you're in seated, you could take some windshield wipes. Eventually, we'll meet back in this tabletop position. So just circle out the hip a little bit if you'd like. Take some stretches. Get some intuitive movement in your body. So in Sanskrit, that's called sahaja. So feeling kind of what your body needs, what would feel good to stretch out in between the sides, especially as this one is a bit intense. And then as you're ready, as you ever will be, to work into the second side of swan, bring your left foot forward this time. Again, bringing the bolster with you. I really like the bolster across the center. You can also use a rolled up blanket at home. That works great. Start to walk the left foot across. And again, we're trying to the best of our ability to have that shin parallel. We definitely need padding, most of us do, to be able to get that shin parallel. Now, if you're feeling it in the knee, remember that means you've got restriction in the hip. I do not want you to feel it in the knee. So bring the heel a little bit closer to your body if you're feeling it in the knee, or pad yourself up a little bit more. So the idea here is that our hip points are even. So our pelvis is even here. We're going to have a little activity at first. So tuck the back toes. You can move that right knee back a little bit if you need. Fingertips onto the earth. You're lifting yourself up here, and then start to press the left hip down and start to draw it back. So imagine you could drag your left hip back a little bit towards the back of your mat, and you might feel that a little bit more intensely. Again, we're kind of like engaging these muscles first before we lengthen them. Beautiful. Now you can start to relax the feet. So relax the right foot. You can flip it over. You can keep that flex in the front foot if that helps your knee to stay more stable. No, you can stay lifted, or you can start to come down onto the elbows. You could have blocks underneath the elbows, block underneath the forehead if you would like. Find your variation of swan, whether it's sleeping or not. Right away, notice the feedback your body is giving you. Is this side different? Is it more open? Do you feel it in a different place perhaps on this side? Again, this is an asymmetrical posture, so we're doing different things with the legs. That front left leg, external rotation, feeling it maybe in the outer hip, or perhaps feeling it a little bit more intensely in the extension of the back hip. Those hip flexors, especially the psoas. Yogis, you have 3 breaths left. Second side of swan. Can you soften in just a little bit more, releasing that tension from the jaw, finding your edge. When you reach the end of your third breath, starting to walk your hands back in towards your body. Again, 2 ways to get out of this. You can just lean to the left and kind of remove the bolster and kick the feet out in front of you. Or you can come back into tabletop and circle that hip out if you would like. Maybe waving the hips back and forth, stretching it out a bit. Find what your body is asking you to do to stretch it out. Beautiful. All right, for our last shape, it will take us into Shavasana, and you can actually use this as your Shavasana if you'd like. So this is my favorite shape to teach. I think it's the best one that we can take, especially at home. And I always say if you can do this posture for 15 minutes a day, it really will help to change your posture. So most of us have this rounded posture most of the time without even thinking about it. So we want to start to really open up the chest and heart. It helps us to have props to support us to do that. So this one's called supported fish. So a couple different ways you can do it. You can use blocks, or if you want it less intense, especially if you're going to stay there for Shavasana, just I'll show that one first. Bring the bolster behind you. So this can be your supported fish with a bolster. If you'd like it to be a little bit more intense, taking one block in between the shoulder blades, and it's going to depend where you want it. So you can turn it up on the medium setting. That'll be the most chest opening. If you want it on the lowest, you could have it on the lowest. I'm going to show the medium. And then we definitely do want a block behind the back of the head. So if you're on your medium, the block is usually on the highest setting. If you're on the low, then your head block is medium. So planting the feet, working yourself down. And then the reason we have the block behind the back of the head is because this is not comfortable. We don't want to do that. We want to have some support for the neck here. And the block, take a moment to diagnose it. It should be right in between the shoulder blades. So the bottom of the block should line up with the bottom of the shoulder blades. And the top of the block is kind of at the top of the shoulder blade. So it's not on your neck. It's lower down. We want it literally right behind your heart. And that's going to create that opening across. You can also turn the block horizontally and have it kind of across where a heart rate monitor would go, if that feels better for you. So find what works. Yes, if anyone needs any help, you can feel free to give me a little wave. Jack, does your neck feel okay like that? Okay, beautiful. So you can keep your feet planted, or you can lengthen your legs out long if you would prefer. It'll just make it a little bit more intense. And all you're doing here is allowing the props to do the work. So you're softening onto those props, allowing them to let your heart and chest open. Again, we tend to be very locked with short, weak muscles in the front of the chest, the pec area, the armpits. So this is going to allow things to start to open up. And as I said, you can actually hold this posture for up to 15 minutes. Doing it at home with pillows or blankets can be nice. Or if you have 2 blocks, you can set yourself up, set a timer, and just relax for a little while. Nice way to start or end your day. will eventually be quiet and let you relax, but I will have one more reading for you from Journey to the Heart. So this one's called Reduce Your Stress. Stress can be caused by many things. A healing professional, said. It can be caused by toxins in the air, by food, work, money, or love. And sometimes tension and stress are caused by reacting to old beliefs, the messages in your mind. We can't always eliminate the situations that produce stress. Some stress in life is inevitable. It is part of being alive. Stress is often the impetus that moves us forward into growth, into emotional release and healing, into awareness and change. While we can't and don't want to eliminate all the stress in our lives, we can reduce its impact. We can eat foods we respond well to. We can monitor the quality of the air we breathe in many situations. We can leave a work or love situation that has become too stressful, or we can take better care of ourselves in those situations we choose to stay in. And we can work on changing stress-producing beliefs within ourselves. I can't measure up. I can't get the job done. I won't be liked. I can't trust myself. Many of these beliefs are outdated reactions to other times in our lives, and now we know we have the power to change them. What's causing stress in your life? Do the things you can to reduce stress in your life. Reduce as much toxicity in the environment and in yourself as you can. Yogis, beginning to bring the awareness back into the body, perhaps sending the breath down to the toes. You start to wiggle, feeling the bottoms of the feet, the heels, feeling the calves, feeling the backs of the legs attached to the earth, feeling the hips, feeling the belly, the chest opening, feeling the hands, the forearms, the elbows connected to the earth, Feeling the block in between the shoulder blades, feeling the back of the head, the face, wiggling the fingers, bringing the awareness back into the full body. Take our time to work out of this one. Bend into the knees as you're ready and plant the soles of the feet on the earth first. In a moment here, just reorienting. And eventually we're going to roll off of the blocks to either the left or the right or the bolster. Use your elbow to help you here. So take your time to come off of this one. Very large heart opener. And we find a little time in our fetal position. So use your bicep as a pillow. You can hug your knees a little closer into your chest. Just kind of allow everything to settle. So heart opening postures can make us feel a bit vulnerable. Just taking a little bit of time. It's a good vulnerability, but sometimes it's not something we're used to. As you feel ready, you can press yourself up into a comfortable seat, whatever that means for you, and we'll close out our practice together. We'll find our Anjali Mudra, so we can bring the palms together, pressing the thumbs gently into the sternum into the thumbs. You can close your eyes and tuck your chin into your chest. Beautiful yin practice today. Yin can make us feel quite vulnerable. Vulnerability is a good thing. We did a reading on that today, and if you're ever interested, I have to recommend Brene Brown's work on vulnerability. She has a TED Talk. She's written a couple of books. They're beautiful. They really can help us change the way we feel in our lives. Reading her or watching her TED Talk actually was a big thing for me, that I realized that vulnerability was very difficult for me in my life, and I think a lot of people can relate to that. The light and love in me sees and honors the light and love in each and every single one of you. Namaste, yogis.